Hi, and welcome to RACQ's Parent Plates program, a guide to help you help your teenager get their driver's license while keeping them safe on the road. Learning to drive, it's something many teenagers can't wait to do. In fact, it's almost a rite of passage, a time when your teenager can finally break free to explore the world on their terms. However, learning to drive can be a really nervous time for many parents. There are plenty of media reports about crashes involving young people, so it's natural to feel anxious about this new phase of your teenager's life. But it might help to know that the risk of a crash when a learner is behind the wheel is significantly lower than a provisional driver. Being unsupervised and inexperienced are the two biggest risk factors for young people when they first start driving by themselves. This is why it's so important to provide these two elements during the learner process. Remember what it was like when you learnt to drive? It was probably in the car park of your local shopping centre on a Sunday. Back then, the only day it was closed, right? Or maybe you learnt driving the clapped-out ute on the farm. Either way, things have changed a lot when it comes to your kids getting their driver's license. These series of videos will give you a better understanding as to how you can help your teenager and keep them safe throughout the learner process. We'll cover the steps to obtaining an open car licence in Queensland, introduce you to simple, practical strategies to be an effective supervisor, and more importantly, how to instill a safety mindset with your teenager. The focus of the learning process is to prepare teenagers for a wide range of driving conditions in an emotionally and physically safe environment. We must remember learning to drive takes time and practice, skills which as parents we can sometimes take for granted. It's our role to be supportive, patient and knowledgeable during our teenagers' learning to drive journey. Even before your teenager can drive, there's 6 key things you can do now to plan ahead. So let's take a look. Number 1, tap into their curiosity. The closer they get to the learner-driver age, the more curious your teenager will become about the skill of driving. So, have a conversation. While travelling together, explain the tasks you're thinking about as you drive. Talk to your teenager about how you continually scan the road environment, how you detect perceived or recognisable hazards, and how you're making decisions to avoid them. For an example, when approaching a roundabout, explain the lane choice you've made, who gives way, and when to indicate. Your decisions will be incredibly insightful to your teenager, and it'll reinforce the notion that driving is more than just changing gears, reverse parking, and a 3-point turn. Number 2, be a good role model. Realise that you're transferring your words and actions to your teenager each time they observe you drive. As a role model, it's vital you think about whether you want your child to drive the way you do. When you think about it, how can we teach the dangers of distracted driving if we use our mobile phones behind the wheel? Or how do we teach our learner driver to be courteous on the road when we don't show courtesy ourselves? Check your driving behaviours now so that your teenager begins driving with lifelong safe skills. Number 3, decide the best method of teaching. Knowing your child the way you do, how do they best learn? Do they get nervous and rattled easily, or do they have an air of overconfidence about them? Perhaps your personality and the way you instruct others is counterproductive to the way your teenager learns. Either way, discuss with your teenager how they would like to be taught. Now is also the time to decide what is the balance between lessons with you as a supervisor or lessons from a driving school. If you're going to engage a driving school, even for some of the Learn to Drive process, it's best you do it earlier than later. Early exposure to an accredited driving school ensures your teenager is being taught best practice driving skills, skills which will keep them safer for longer. Number 4, the type of vehicle is also important. Another consideration is whether to learn on a manual or automatic vehicle, and there are pros and cons for each. A manual license will give your teenager more options. For example, driving other vehicles which aren't their own, job requirements, or emergency situations. Plus, manual vehicles are usually cheaper to buy, cheaper to run, and cheaper to fix. Perhaps the best advantage of gaining a manual license is that you can drive both a manual and automatic vehicle. In Queensland, if you gain your license in an automatic car, you can't drive a manual car until you successfully pass a manual transmission practical driving test. No doubt the skills in learning to operate an automatic vehicle can be easier to master, and when it comes to buying an automatic vehicle, there are more options to choose from. But at the end of the day, manual versus automatic is your choice. Number 5, the vehicle's safety rating. It's important to consider the safety rating of the vehicle, which will be used to not only teach your learner driver, but also be driven by your teenager under a provisional license. In most cases, families will use the second car, often not as safe as what the parents use. To help you make a better decision regarding the safety of your learner driver, the RACQ has developed the Used Car Safety Rating Guide. This resource rates hundreds of vehicle models covering most of the popular vehicles in Australia and New Zealand, manufactured from 1998 onwards. The ratings measure the level of protection from injury analysed from real-world crash data. As a rule, newer vehicles provide a higher level of injury protection than older vehicles. RACQ recommends you teach your teenager in the safest vehicle you can. You can download the Used Car Safety Rating Guide at racq.com. If you're purchasing a second-hand vehicle for your teenager, another option is to search for the safest car in your price range by going to the Queensland Government Street Smarts site at streetsmarts.initiatives.qld.gov.au. Number 6, car insurance. As the owner of the policy, it's important that your vehicle insurance covers your teenager if they cause an at-fault accident while under your supervision. You'll also need to check whether the premium will increase and what the excess will be if your provisional licensed teenager is involved in an at-fault accident. In many cases, having a listed driver under 25 years old on the policy means having to pay a basic excess as well as an age excess. Again, check your policy to make sure you understand the level of insurance cover. There are many things you can do as a parent to prepare yourself and your teenager for their Learn to Drive experience. Preparing now ensures that you are well placed to set your teenager up for success at being a safe and competent driver. In the next module, you'll learn how to prepare your teenager for their learner license, what the graduated licensing system means, and the strategies to become an effective and supportive driving supervisor. Your teenager's Learn to Drive journey is also your journey, so let RACQ make it a safe, effective, and memorable one.